What is up, everybody? You're listening to another episode of the Stay Tranquilo podcast, where we're here to help you stress a little bit less and enjoy a whole lot more. I'm here with Jessica Martin, a.k.a. the Jessica Experience.
Yeah, hello.
What's your thing? You usually go like, what up, brother?
Hell yeah, brother.
Hell yeah, brother. So here with Jess. I've known Jess now for the better half of probably like, let me see the math, like 8 years, I want to say. Like
easy.
Since high school. Met through your cousin Vince, which
Shout
was
out
pretty
Vince.
cool. Shout out to Vince. But tell us a little bit about you, Jess. You know, what you do, who you are.
Yeah,
Anything
absolutely.
fun about you?
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Of course.
I am an influencer, content creator. I also own a digital creative agency called Mood the Agency, and I also host my own podcast, which is called Whiskey and Water, which is about female entrepreneurship and women in business.
Awesome. Hell yeah. Yeah, so I've actually listened to a few episodes of the Whiskey and Water podcast, and I love the concept behind it because it's like you're the whiskey drinker, and then your friend who Olivia, right, is her name, who doesn't drink alcohol, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So tell us a little bit about what the podcast entails, you know, what it how the podcast originated, and you know, what you plan on doing with the podcast.
For sure. So me and my co-host Olivia, we both kind of have a really similar progression of our careers, which is we started off as models in Miami. That's how we met. And then kind of naturally transformed into like influencing and monetizing our platforms.
Right.
And then we just kind of realized that Instagram wasn't really a platform that we could offer a lot more than like our physical appearances. So we just felt like we had more to offer. So I talk a lot. Would love to have a podcast, so I convinced Olivia to do it with me. And originally we started off as like a really like lifestyle podcast, like dating, sex, relationships, business, you know, anything under the sun. And that was super, super fun. But as we kind of aged and matured a little bit, it wasn't really inspiring us. And it was also so broad that we would kind of just sit down in front of the mics and be like, what the fuck am I allowed to cuss?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And we would be like, well, what are we going to talk about today?
Yeah.
So, you know, as we kind of came into like this new season of our lives where we were launching the agency, we just kind of felt like women entrepreneurship, female entrepreneurship, women in business was a little bit more aligned for us. And, you know, it inspires us. It gives us really amazing guests to have on. We get to learn every week when we sit down. So that's kind of what, you know, led us to where we are now with the podcast.
Cool. And I think you touched on a good point and something that I actually wanted to talk about. So, you know, females in the business world and everything, you know, whatever industry it is, being a female, has there been like certain obstacles that you feel like you faced, you know, starting the podcast, being an influencer? Obviously, I think influencer marketing skews a little bit more female than male, obviously, depending the products that you're promoting. But has there been something that you think out there that has been like a challenge being a female in the space?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really a tale as old as time to say that women are typically treated differently than men.
Right.
I won't say that there aren't pros and cons to that.
Yeah.
Because, you know, there are things such as like pretty privilege and, you know, kind of being seen more because you are, you know, marketed as desirable. However, I will say that in the influencer industry, we are definitely not taken seriously as entrepreneurs or just business people in general.
Right.
It's really easily written off as like oh, she's a dumb bitch who takes photos of herself, you know, in bikinis and gets a bunch of likes. What they don't see is like the invoicing, the negotiations, like the email, like the editing, the actual content creation, the creativity that goes behind all of those things. Like, people just so easily want to say, you know, just write it off, which, you know, I understand. I'm not saying that it's not a preferred, you know, sort of job, because I know that it's a lot of people's dream jobs, and I understand that. However, there is a lot that goes to it that is
they don't
easily
understand how much goes into it and what exactly like being an influencer entails.
For sure. And so, I mean, that's really why we started the podcast, is because, you know, like I said, we had more to offer.
Right.
And we kind of, we try to have a lot of transparency in the industry and kind of talk about everything that goes into it, you know, talk about how much we're getting paid, because a lot of people also don't realize that this is a full-time career. I make, you know, a solid amount of money just purely off of posting photos.
Yeah.
And of course, like I said, there is a lot more
It's
that goes to
it's
it.
a form of advertising. I mean,
Exactly.
I feel like influencer marketing has, for the most part, always existed at some capacity. What's happened is the platforms of Instagram, Facebook, now TikTok, Snapchat, all these different digital platforms allows the opportunity for someone like you that necessarily isn't a huge celebrity, right? Or other people in the space that aren't huge celebrities, like the Shakiras of the world, or whoever it may be. But it allows an opportunity to promote products and get a product in front of eyeballs that skew towards who they want to sell to.
For sure. And it's a multi-billion-dollar industry at this point.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I feel like it's really just silly to invalidate it being an actual career.
Yeah.
When
many
some
of the largest companies are putting dollars behind, influencers like yourself.
Yeah.
Because it works.
Yeah, big dollars.
And it's proven that it's a concept that you need to do.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, if a company isn't doing influencer marketing and, they're an established brand, it's kind of just like you're behind the times. Right. Because also it adds credibility to brands. It adds notoriety. It's like, if your favorite influencer is posting about something, you're 10 times more likely to, try that brand versus another one.
Yeah, definitely. So you started the podcast how long ago?
2 years.
2 years ago. Is there a specific episode that you think someone should listen to, or do you have maybe 2 or 3 that you recommend that are some of your favorite?
So, I mean, we have over 100 episodes. I think we have 110 now. Okay. At some point, we actually just wrapped our season 9.
Nice.
So it's hard to say because I really do love everything we put out. Every week, I'm this is my favorite episode.
Cool.
I would definitely listen to season 9, which is our most recent season.
Okay.
We had just really, really incredible women and people on behind huge brands that shared incredible insight into, what got them to where they were or where they are now, being transparent about money, being transparent about the struggles, how to stay motivated, discipline, consistency, all of those things.
Cool. Okay. Awesome. So then the second half of your business is the Mood Agency or Mood the Agency, right? So tell us a little bit about that, how that kind of originated, when you started that and what your plans with that agency is.
Yeah, definitely. So we launched Mood in January of 2021, so this year. Nice. So we're about to reach our 1 year mark. Cool. And again, that was a really natural progression for the both of us because I started offering content creation as an additional service to brands. I would just say hey, by the way, if you want photos that I'm not necessarily in, but you want my quality of work and you want my style, I can shoot it on my influencer and model friends and, just deliver that as an additional side of income. And that started doing really, really well for me. And that was where I was generating a lot of income. And I happened to use Olivia as my model for pretty much everything because of course, she's not going to charge me. So,
smart for the business.
She was realizing that I was getting a lot of, work this way. She was getting some work that way. And so we decided to launch the agency originally purely as a content creation agency. Okay. And then we decided not to necessarily limit ourselves. And now we're a full service digital agency. And we offer social media account management, TikTok creation, content creation, graphic design, brand audits, things of that nature.
Okay. And I guess from a small brand to a large brand, what have you seen working in the digital space and in the influencer space? What is it that companies care about the most from a marketing standpoint? Is it the content? Is it the influencers? Is it paid media, right? So where do you see a lot of these companies going? Obviously, some companies have larger budgets than others, but for the most part, where do you see them?
I would say the majority of our work really comes from content creation because content is king, you
need usually video, right?
Yeah, so we do a lot of, all of our content creation packages include a certain amount of reels. We have some packages with, clients that are now it's a custom package where we're only doing reel and TikTok content and we're sourcing the ideas, we're sourcing the creators, and we're producing that content for them. So content is definitely king, and I think it always will be.
Yeah, I agree.
And a lot of them are now moving into TikTok, which, I think that any large brand or, large or small should be kind of using TikTok as a platform because it's just
the organic
the viral
reach.
ability is the virability is next level.
Yeah. Definitely.
And then, we do a lot of influencer campaigns as well. So
Cool.
that I think are like the two kind of things that brands are really focusing on right now.
Okay. Awesome. So somebody that's, an aspiring entrepreneur, female, young, that, either wants to become an influencer, wants to start, something in that space, what is something that you would recommend to them to like get started? Because this is my opinion. The concept of being an influencer is becoming a little saturated, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone wants to become an influencer. Everyone's promoting some sort of product, right? So something that I'm a very big believer in is like authenticity, mm-hmm. right? Originality, which I think you've always been that way. I think you're very true to your colors. You're very on brand, I guess, for like a lack of a better term, right? So what would you recommend to someone, like not only about just starting and getting going, but it's like how can you find kind of like your niche, finding your identity in becoming an influencer in a industry that's pretty much saturated, and it seems like there's one in every corner?
Yeah. Well, first of all, there's a lot to unpack there. Yeah. Thank you for the compliment. I appreciate it.
No problem.
There's a lot to unpack. So let's start with like, someone that wants to become an influencer. I would say first things first, kind of decide what kind of influencer you want to be. What is something that you're passionate about? It could be fitness, it could be beauty, skincare, makeup, wellness, body positivity, like whatever is like your thing. Make sure it's something that you are truly passionate about and that you could talk about for pretty much the rest of your life.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, you gotta be, I always say like, whether you work in sales, whether you work as an influencer, whatever it is, I think there has to be like an aspect of like passion behind mm-hmm. what you're promoting, right? Because you get lost, obviously, like the dollars start coming in, right? And you're like, oh shoot, this is nice. But then you don't believe in the product that you're promoting. One, mm-hmm. it's going to be pretty evident that you don't really care and you're doing it for all the wrong reasons. And two, you're going to get tired of promoting mm-hmm. that. So I think, like to your point, like passion and believing in what you're promoting is a huge thing.
Yeah. And, you also don't have to niche down super hard.
Yeah.
And this is actually something that we spoke about recently with an influencer on my podcast, which I actually gained a lot of insight from, because I'm a lifestyle influencer. I really promote anything that I feel like is aligned with myself and, my lifestyle. And so we were speaking to this influencer who is super niche, and we were like, how do you incorporate different sort of partnerships, like without limiting yourself? Like, let's say something that wasn't specifically on brand, they reached out and they were like, hey, we want to partner with you, but it's not entirely on brand for you. And she was like, well, I'd really just kind of rework it. So she's like a super like entrepreneur based influencer, and she just has a really specific kind of content. And so an example of like something that she did was she partnered with like HelloFresh, which is a at home meal service sort of thing. And typically that would really only be on brand for like a nutrition or wellness lifestyle wellness entrepreneur. And she was able to rework it and say, oh, HelloFresh allows me to keep up this busy lifestyle. Yeah. So, you don't have to niche down super hard and limit yourself, but it is good to have a platform where people know what they're coming to when they go to your profile. And as far as building the brand, once you kind of find this niche that you want to...
Like your personal brand.
Yeah. Once you start... Because, of course, like, you can be passionate about something, but if you don't know how to, like, grow the following, then you're kind of shit out of luck.
Right.
So I would say that in this new age... Because, I've been on Instagram for...
Yeah, it was a work in progress.
Yeah, I've been on Instagram for, like, 9 or 10 years now. And,
exactly.
And I've had my following for years. So I would say that move away from Instagram a little bit. Like, it's definitely still a platform that you need to utilize.
Yeah.
However, I think that TikTok is really, really where it's at for new creators, because it really does, favor authenticity, and just the growth is so much more organic. And they're also like new and engaged people. So I've noticed that, influencers on Instagram who have a really high engagement, which is what matters, they have really big platforms on TikTok and on YouTube. Okay. And that audience converts into like this really high engaged following, which of course helps with, negotiating higher rates and things like that.
So I'm glad that you brought that up. How does that process work, right? So you have the following, or you're building up this following, right? How do I, obviously some of it comes to you, but how do I go out there and say, hey, like I have this following, this is what I promote, this is my lifestyle, this is my brand. how do I go to market now and like say, hey, I want to work with you?
Yeah. And this is like a super common misconception. Like people think that like brands just come to you all the time.
Yeah.
But the truth is the majority of my work comes from brand outreach. And this is something that any creator
out to the brands.
Yes. Yeah. Doing just a ton of brand outreach with brands that I've discovered that I felt were aligned. Like I recommend pretty much anyone doing this. Like even if you have a podcast, we do brand outreach for the podcast. So essentially it's, it's a pitch. You're pitching yourself. So like, let's say I found a brand that I felt was aligned and, I wanted to work with them. I pretty much have a template that I customize a little bit for each brand. And it's, it's a little quick introduction about who I am, what I do, links to, what I have. I tell them about my podcast. I tell them about my agency so that they know that those are opportunities as well, which helps me get a lot of people for the podcast and it helps me get a lot of clients for my agency as well. Nice. That's where we've gotten like the majority. So from there,
And you reach out to these brands through email and who I guess in these brands and in these companies, who are you reaching out to? Is it like a marketing manager?
Yeah. So typically it'll be like, info@skincare.com.
Okay.
So typically from there, they will either forward that email to the appropriate department or I can do a little bit more digging, which I tend to do, and I'll go on that person's website. So, I'll go to skincare.com. I scroll to the bottom, and it always says contact us. Sometimes it'll say collaborations or partnerships or press/media. Okay. Sometimes you can find a more direct. Sometimes I'll CC anyone in the company. Like
Yeah. Just kind of like winging it and see what...
The squeaky wheel gets oiled or something like that. So that's what I do. And then sometimes if I don't hear a response, I'll DM if I feel like... Or if they don't have the email in bio, I'll DM and say, hi there, I would love to work together. I feel like this is super aligned. Is there a good email that I can reach out to? I kind of always try to divert back to email because that's where you'll get money. Yeah. Because if you're just DMing a brand, it's unlikely that,
the reality is whoever's managing that portion of the company is not
privy to be paying you even. So definitely getting in their email, doing a lot of follow-up. I'm really fortunate now to have like an assistant who handles all of my emails because it is a lot. I draft every email to brands that I feel like are aligned, but she's the one that reaches out and then she does 2 rounds of follow-ups if we don't hear back.
Okay, cool. And that process of you reaching out, do you have like a pitch deck that you present to these brands?
Yes. Okay. I'm glad that you brought that up. It's called a media kit. Every influencer, creator, or even a podcast should have one. Okay. And it really just breaks down, again, it's more of like an in-depth bio of who you are, what your passions are. It'll have some of your insights and analytics. It'll have your rates, and it'll have, anything that is going to convince a brand to want to work with you. You'll have your engagement rates, you'll have your male to female demographic, and then you'll have bundle packages, the rates for a post, rates for a reel. And I don't send that the first email. I make it very clear in the first email that I am looking for paid work because I'm not trying to like have them reach back out and be like, we'd love to send you a t-shirt for 4 posts, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do it. So I make it pretty clear, but I say it nicely in the email. Like, I would love to work together on any paid opportunities that you have coming up, something of that nature. And then, if they respond back and they want to work together, or they, kind of show interest, we attach the PDF and say, we've attached the media kit for your reference. Please take a look whenever you get a chance and, let us know your thoughts. Because it's pretty clear there that there's no unpaid opportunities.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and you don't want, just like anybody, you don't want to waste their time and you don't want to waste your time either. Yeah. So working as an influencer now and being an entrepreneur, what's one of the things that 2 things. One, what's the thing that you valued like the most out of like being an entrepreneur and being an influencer, I guess like your favorite part about that? Mm-hmm. And then on the other side, what's been like one of the biggest, struggles of being an entrepreneur and an influencer?
So they're kind of 2 different things. I mean, not to say that influencers aren't entrepreneurs, but I kind of consider like my influencer lifestyle and my entrepreneur lifestyle kind of separate because the agency is its whole monster.
That's a whole other monster in itself.
But definitely. As far as like, my favorite thing about influencing is definitely like the just insane opportunities that I've gotten. Like I've really traveled the world and gotten paid for it, which is unreal to me. Like I can't believe it's my life the majority of the time. Like it's I'm at a loss for words for the opportunities that come to me and just like the really, really incredible people that I get to meet. So that's definitely my favorite part. And my least favorite part is definitely like the stigma that comes with it, especially like if I meet someone out, or even before I launched like my agency, and someone would be like, oh, what do you do? I do not say influencer. You know, usually I say content creator, because I feel like that, I mean, that is the majority of what I do.
It is what you do.
You know, I create content for brands. I just happen to also post it and get paid for it. So there's definitely a stigma associated with it, and people do, you know, associate being an influencer with a lack of intelligence, you know, just as they would with modeling. And even when I was purely modeling, I never said I just model. You know what I mean? So that's definitely my least favorite part.
Do you do any of the modeling stuff still, or not really?
I do. I'm with a couple agencies, and they send me castings, but I really only go to castings for anything that, one, is like directly requested, like they saw me and said, we want to see her in person, because it's super time consuming. And I only go to things that honestly have high budgets, just because, you know, like when I can make what I would make on a day-long shoot in one post, it's kind of just like hard to justify working that much. It's a very privileged thing to say, but it's the reality right now.
Yeah, exactly. You got to go with it. So a big part of this podcast is mental health. Obviously, you know, always want to provide value in all the conversations that we do. But one thing that's like a big stronghold in social media is the issues that are coming out with mental health, right? And a lot of these platforms, whether they're doing the right things or they're not doing the right things, are making changes to kind of accommodate towards mental health, right? Like taking out how many likes there are, YouTube's taking out the dislike button or hiding the dislike button. So these platforms are, I guess, being aware of the issue, again, whether it's the right things or not. What has social media done in terms of people's mental health, right? And where do you see these platforms going? Because it's clear that it's affecting, you know, there's depression that's increased, anxiety that's increased, body dysmorphia has increased, right? So there's a lot of issues that obviously it provides so much, but at what cost, right? So I guess to you, it doesn't necessarily have to be to your personal. What have you seen the effect of social media on mental health?
Yeah, I would definitely say that it's...
I'm going to crack this open because I'm very thirsty.
Get in there.
I know you don't drink, but I'm going to crack my Johnny Cuba open. Hey. But we're going to bring whiskey for you on the next one.
Next one.
All right?
I'm there. I'm game. So I would say that, you know, it's kind of interesting for me to talk about, because it's like I have never really just been on social media as someone who was not an influencer. You know, like I've always seen it as a job. And so it affects my mental health specifically in different ways, because I just get burnt out. I compare myself. I compare my content, not really myself. But I know that a lot of people, you know, struggle with their self-image, because, you know, they're seeing these people posting these incredibly curated, edited photos that, you know, is incredibly hard to achieve unless you are literally skilled in it. You know, like I take a million photos and only one gets to the feed. And it's the one that, you know, I look the best in, the lighting hit different. It's, you know, it's touched up, it's clean, it's edited. And, you know, that's just my job as a creator, is to create this aesthetically pleasing content. And, you know, I know a lot of people that edit their bodies and, you know, change their faces a lot. And, you know, I won't lie, of course, if I try to edit like pimples and distracting stuff, because it's kind of your job to make an aesthetically pleasing photo for the brands. You know, like they don't want you to have a giant like pimple when you're promoting their product, because it's like, you know. But one thing that I will never do is like edit like my body. And I know that specifically is one of the things that affects a lot of younger women that are on these platforms, because they look at, and even myself, you know, I look at these other people who have these incredible bodies, whether they're real, because it can be in video or it can be in photo, and it's so hard not to compare yourself. But it's, you know, it's one of the one things that I don't do, because I know how dangerous it can be.
Fall victim into it.
Yeah,
and become an enemy of your mind.
Exactly. And once you kind of get into that sort of thing, because I know a lot of my friends edit their videos, which is totally fine, edit their photos, and, you know, they do it for similar reasons, that, like, you know, they want to create this image that they want people to like be sought after.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I just feel like it does more bad than good, you know? Yeah. So I know it affects a lot of people, like with body dysmorphia and kind of just chasing, you know, these unrealistic expectations of, you know, what they're supposed to look like. But as far as like my own personal experience, I can't super speak on it because of the way I've always treated it.
Of course. And I think you're one of those people that have always been, I guess, you know, going back to like your brand, like you've always been someone that's like, hey, this is me. If you like it, good. If you don't, then whatever. Right?
Yeah. And I'll say even to that effect, like, I think a lot of people think that I'm like that all the time, but that's not,
of course not. But that's how you want to treat it, because you realize like it's better to treat it that way than to become victim, to be like, I got to be this perfect person. I got to hit this standard.
Yeah.
You know,
I just want to be realistic that like, even if these people are coming off as like, oh, I don't give a fuck. And I am who I am, which is my attitude the majority of the time. And it is what kind of helps keep me grounded. But you know, even myself, it's
human.
Yeah.
We all have these thoughts. And I think that's the biggest thing, right? Like we all struggle saying like, damn, you know, there's always like the line from J. Cole, right? He goes, there's always going to be someone that has a bigger house. There's always going to be, you know, a guy that has a prettier girlfriend or, you know, a wealthier lifestyle. There's always going to be someone that's quote unquote better than the life that you're living, right? In your eyes, right? But you're never going to be happy until you appreciate what's yours, right? Yeah. Exactly, until you love yours, right? So, in some of my other episodes, I always come back to that line, because that line is one of the most true lines, you know, that at least that's resonated with me. Because if we get stuck in this constant like battle of like basically what it is comparing, right? We're never going to be happy, right? So it comes down to us having to realize, okay, this is my life, this is who I am, and this is what I want to promote. You want to root for me, go for it. If you don't, then that's fine. But if you know and you're very clear about what you're doing, then the rest, I think, becomes a little bit smaller, and it doesn't become as relevant, right? Like your brand is your brand as a person and for the work that you do. And if you don't get so stuck on worrying about what the others are doing, then you get to focus more about who you are, and people will, you know, kind of follow you for who you are eventually.
Yeah, you can't start your journey on self-hatred and self-deprecation and expect, you know, expect anything good to come from that. You know, like you have to love who you are now and where you're at now. And then you'll grow in love and you'll grow in abundance when those are the things that you're, you know, manifesting in the moment. Yeah.
I mean, you know, when I started this, I listened to a lot of podcasts. You know, I've been an aspiring entrepreneur. You know, I'm an entrepreneur, but nowhere near where I want to be, in terms of the goals that I have for myself. But a lot of things that I do is I catch myself, okay, this guy's doing this, I got to do this. This guy's doing that, I got to do that, right? But then I've realized I lose my authenticity as to who I am as my brand, who I am as a person, and what I want to accomplish, right? It's like being so focused on what you want to do and what you want to achieve, the rest doesn't matter, right? Yeah. Obviously you can learn from others, you can piggyback off what others are doing, but at the end of the day, just stay true to what makes you, I guess, happy, you know, and what you care about, and the rest, like you said, will kind of like take care of itself.
Yeah. And I think there's a quote that goes like, comparison is the thief of joy.
Right.
And you can definitely be inspired by others, and of course, like I think that comparison is really just natural in our, you know, it's innate. Yeah. And I think it's fine to compare when it's in the, you know, realm of inspiration and not the realm of like self-hatred and why am I not enough. Yeah. But I mean, of course, we need to be inspired by other things. And that's kind of what I say for a lot of people who are even in the social media space. You need to unfollow brands, or not brands, but people, influencers, even brands that don't inspire you. Yeah. Or that you realize you're looking at and comparing yourself and being like, this is, you know, this isn't serving me.
Yeah, that's an awesome point that you brought up, because it takes like a level of awareness, right? Yeah. So if I'm, you know, shamelessly just scrolling through the feed of TikTok, Instagram, right? And you're not really like aware of what your reaction is to a certain post that you saw, or an image that you saw, or a caption that you read, and you realize, wait, like there's been times where I'm sitting there and I'm like in a bad mood after getting off of Instagram, right? And I'm like, what was it that set that trigger when I was on social media, right? It was probably me comparing and realizing, oh, wow, I'm not here. I'm not at that level. Like I suck, you know, whatever it is that I'm telling myself in my head, but it's some sort of trigger that I'm seeing. And you know, the average person spending 6-8 hours a day on these platforms, right?
Yeah.
So that's a lot of mush that you're feeding into your brain. So I think, like you said, filtering what type of content that you're putting out there, you know, listening to podcasts instead of spending 8 hours on social media, listening to some song that you've probably heard 30 times, like put the music off for a second and feed yourself with some like motivational talk or inspiring
or
talk,
just
educational
silence.
talk, and silence.
Give yourself some silence. You know what I mean?
How freaking
Yeah.
Do you meditate?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, and what does that practice
Look like for
look
me?
like for you?
So I try to do it every morning because I just
Okay.
feel like it's the best time to
Agreed.
kind of include that silence. And don't get me wrong, I'm not fucking perfect. I don't do it every morning.
There's no
I
such
should.
That's the beauty of a meditation. There's no perfection behind
Exactly.
it. It's perfectly imperfect.
And I also, so to finish your question, every morning I use the app Headspace.
Okay,
And
cool.
I just do those guided meditations, which I really, really love.
Okay.
But I also try to meditate in like small moments, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like while I'm washing the dishes,
Being
I
aware.
am so present and that was like one of the things that I actually got from another podcast. It was like, you know, be all there when
Yeah.
you're doing these things. When you're folding laundry, be all there. And I found that, you know, just kind of letting myself really just focus on these one things, not like think about like all the million fucking things that I need to do right after this.
Exactly.
I found that was really therapeutic. I mean, I find that being in the gym, those are meditative moments for myself as well. Because I really just tune out, you know, get in touch with my body and, you know, meditate that way as well.
Yeah, and that's a good point because people have the misconception that meditation is sitting down and like closing your eyes and right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like which that is a form of meditation, and I think is a very powerful form, but it's a little intimidating, right? Because
For sure.
for the people that have tried or haven't tried, it's like you sit there, then that's when your mind starts wandering at a million miles an hour, and they call the monkey mind, right?
Yeah.
Where it's bouncing from thought to thought. You're thinking about, you know, the plans for later, what you haven't done for work, whatever it is that's running your mind, family issues, work issues, whatever it may be, all those thoughts are in your head, right? And that's what meditation is.
Yeah.
And it feels uncomfy because now all of a sudden you think you meditate, you close your eyes, it's supposed to be silent.
And you're guilting yourself. And,
Exactly.
and that's like the opposite of what
It's
you're supposed to be
it's
doing.
judgment.
Yeah.
You're passing judgment on yourself, right? So part of that meditation is you sitting there and being like, hey, I realize this thought. Maybe I do have to do that, but right now that's not what's important.
Yeah.
Right now what's important is what I'm doing here right now. And that goes back to what you're saying about washing the dishes, right? Or when you're driving your car or whatever it is that you're doing, you're cooking food. Be very conscious. You're not being present when you're thinking about work while you're cooking dinner, right? Or you're thinking about your relationship and you're doing something for work, right? You're not present in that meeting, right? Here in this podcast, right? Our minds may want to wander somewhere, right? Thinking about what I got to cook the pig tomorrow for Noche Buena. but I'm not going to be present here in this conversation, right? So it's about being grounded and about being so present in now that everything else is irrelevant.
Yeah, falls
and that's the
in the
perfect
background.
form of like mindfulness and a version of meditation, like you said.
Yeah, and people don't realize that it's also a practice. Like the first time I ever sat down to meditate, it wasn't silent at all. I was like, what are people doing?
It takes
I was
time,
like,
just like anything. You don't grow.
I was like, this is meditation?
Yeah.
What's good with people?
And the perfect way I like to use it, like as a comparison, is, you know, you go to the gym, your muscles don't just grow after one day at the gym, right?
Yeah.
It's months,
Exactly.
years of going to the gym that you start to see results from a physical standpoint. It's the same thing on the mental side.
100%.
You start on the treadmill for 5 minutes, right? Then you bump it up to 7 minutes the next week, 10 minutes the next week, and before you know it, you're running for 30 minutes, right? Same thing with meditation. You sit down and meditate for 2 minutes, for 3 minutes, and you slowly progress. It's a work in progress, but we're so stuck in this like instant gratification right now that it's like it's got to be now, it's got to be now, it's got to be now, that people don't want to put in like the time and the effort to like get the results that come from that.
It's the perfect mix of consistency and discipline.
Yeah,
Like
discipline
that is
huge.
what creates results. I mean,
1000%.
it's literally a formula that's right then and there in your face. Everyone wants to know, how do you blow up on social media overnight? How do you do this overnight? How do I get rich quick?
And if you look it up, those are all the captions on Google.
Yeah.
It's like, how do I get rich quick? How do I
million
get
hits.
100,000 followers in a week? You know, it's
Not how do I stay consistent, not how do I cultivate discipline, you know what I mean? So that's
Amen
the
to that.
that's the formula.
Amen to that. I love it. All right. So before we wrap up, there's a segment of the show that we included. It's called Talk Tranqui to me, right? So it's just like quick, rapid questions towards the end of the show, just to like get a little bit about you, and then we're gonna incorporate kind of like a fun segment on social media to get people involved. So the first question that I wanted to ask you is beach or mountains?
Beach all day.
All day.
Miami.
I figured.
305 till I die.
Hell yeah. All right. Action movies or scary movies?
Action movies all day.
Movie. Favorite movie?
I really love like Taken and then like the Bourne series.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
All the Takens or just the first Taken?
The first Taken.
Okay.
Also, I mean, I don't really know. I guess the MCU counts as action.
Yeah.
But like I that's a whole other thing to me. I fucking love the MCU.
Sick. Okay. And then obviously we're a Spanglish brand, Miami brand, between Johnny Cuba and Stay Tranquilo. Do you have a favorite Cuban dish? Cuban food dish? I don't know if you're a big Cuban food
I'm actually
person.
half Nicaraguan.
Okay. Or it could be Nicaraguan if that works for you.
So if we can go, because I don't really know a lot of Cuban dishes.
Okay.
But tres leches is
Nice.
my
We
go-to.
have that as a Cuban dish.
Is
too.
it as well?
Yeah.
I just know the one my grandma makes, and that's about it.
And it's bomb.
Oh, fine.
So your grandma makes the best tres leches then.
She did. R.I.P.
R.I.P. Well, rest in peace. Well,
It's kind of fucked up, my bad.
did she like leave you guys the recipe?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
I had chased her down in the
It's
grave
funny
for
because every time you ask about like a favorite Spanish dish, right? It's not a restaurant. It's not like one of us that makes it.
No.
It's grandma that
abuela's.
makes the
It's
best.
abuela's food.
It's always abuela that makes the best. That's crazy. I wonder which they should have a contest of abuelas versus abuelas to see who makes the best certain dishes.
Like chopped.
Like it's always like, does Isla Canarias or La Gareta or Versailles have the best croqueta? No, it should be which abuela makes the best croqueta.
You're on to something here, dude.
I think we're onto something. All right, what else did I want to ask you? Oh, so you said that you traveled a lot. What's the best destination that you've been to?
Ooh, that's hard because like they all just serve different purposes,
Right.
you know? I would say that like my favorite place to like return to and where I honestly just feel like the best in my like soul is Ibiza, which I know it sounds like kind of people like go there to party and stuff,
Right.
but it's honestly just like a really magical
That's 2 for 2
place.
Right, Ibiza's in Spain,
yeah,
right?
it is.
Last one when I interviewed him was Spain. He wasn't Ibiza, but it was Spain
Yeah.
as well.
No, it's a really incredible place.
Really.
Mm-hmm.
And you said that was a place that you return to. Is there like another place that maybe you visited but maybe not?
Oh yeah, I mean I can go off on.
You can go off on a tangent.
I love Croatia. Croatia was.
Dude, that's on my bucket list
Dude,
for sure.
you have to go. Just one of the most incredible places. So beautiful, so nice. And then I really, really enjoyed like Dubai and Abu Dhabi.
Okay.
Of course, those are pretty
Nice.
like mainstream places, but just honestly, just like a different world. Like it just kind of opened my eyes to a lot of like, especially because you kind of think that the Middle East,
culture as well.
yeah, and you also like I went there scared, like I was like nervous about like what was gonna happen.
Yeah.
But it was so amazing and nice, and the people were incredible, and just a lot of money there. It's really cool.
Shit ton of money there.
Yeah, I went skiing inside in
like
Dubai.
that indoor skiing facility that they have. That's insane.
Isn't that crazy?
That's when you know you have a lot of money.
Exactly. I was like,
this
this is the richest thing I've ever done.
Yeah, that's crazy. And then before we close out, I want you to recommend a podcast and a book that you recommend. I'm assuming you're going to recommend Whiskey and Water as your podcast.
Yeah, I haven't. I mean, of course, Whiskey and Water. Go check it out. But I also love Rob Dial's motivation podcast. I can't remember like the exact name, but if you look up Rob Dial, and it's really dope because they're like 10 to 15 minute segments, and I usually do that every morning while I'm walking my dog, and that's how I start off my day, and it's dope because he's kind of like no bullshit. And then I also love Bigger Pockets, which is a real estate podcast.
That's a really good one.
I mean, shit, that
yeah,
just so much good knowledge there. I'm not even like I don't even have any properties under my belt yet, but I will because of this podcast. Just really, really dope. Like about money.
One of the episodes that we're recording, the guy that's coming on, he's a huge advocate for bigger pockets.
Oh,
and
nice.
A lot of his foundation of knowledge in the finance and real estate world has come from that podcast.
It is like so rich with information and knowledge. Like you would be crazy not to listen to it.
Yeah.
And then as far as books, A book that changed my life was The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Have you read it?
Of course, yeah, I've read it.
Oh,
like 4
incredible.
times.
Yeah,
So
same.
good.
It's so fucking good. And not everyone is like ready to receive that information.
I
But
agree.
if you are looking for,
You're not gonna really process everything.
Yeah.
You could read it, and,
No,
it'll,
no.
and it'll give you a foundation. But you got to be in some sort of headspace and
Yes.
understanding to really grasp everything that's in that book.
100%. Like I would recommend, really taking your time. This is not a book that you'll fly through. I think it took me like 6 months the first time I read it.
There's a reason why I've read it a couple times too. And every time I read it,
It's something
gather
new.
something else. Yeah.
Really 100% changed my life, changed like the trajectory of my growth in my life. And then aside from that, also like the 4 Agreements.
Love
I
that
think
book as
that
well.
I think that if you're not entirely
That's
ready
an
for the Power of
easier
Now,
read for sure.
yeah, the 4 Agreements is definitely a good starting place for anyone.
If you like the Power of Now, there's another book called The Untethered Soul.
Read, been incredible.
Amazing.
Incredible.
That one hit
That
so
one,
hard.
I could reread that.
Yeah,
I could.
That one I've
yeah.
been wanting to reread because that one.
That also took me 6 months.
That one
was deep.
Yeah, that one it like takes you into another like headspace.
Yeah.
You're just like, whoa.
Did you
okay.
read A New Earth after
No.
The Power of Now? So
No.
that's like the brother book.
Okay.
You know, I wouldn't like
Is this a sequel? Or?
it's kind of a sequel, but
Okay.
I don't think really. Like
Okay.
I don't think you have to. But that one's also incredible.
Okay. What's it called? The
A New Earth.
New Earth. New Earth.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Really dope.
All right. Cool. So we're wrapping it up. Obviously, Johnny Cuba.
Johnny
We're here
Cuba.
With the
Stay
power of Johnny
tranquilo.
Cuba. We're here staying
Cheers, brother.
tranquilo with Johnny Cuba. Next time we'll have some whiskey on the
Yeah.
on the show. But obviously we want everyone to follow you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have the agency, the podcast. So
Yeah.
let them know where they can kind of find you and stay in tune with everything that you got going on.
Yeah, of course. So me on Instagram is just the Jessica Experience, super douchey name. I know, let's not talk about it. And then we have Whiskey and Water, which is, available on Apple, Spotify. You can also check us out on Instagram at Whiskey and Water Podcast. And then we also have the Digital Creative Agency, which is at Mood the Agency, where we post a lot of our work. If you have a brand, hit us up. Maybe we can do some content for you.
Oh yeah, I love it. All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in to the Stay Tranquilo podcast. It was obviously a pleasure having you on, and hopefully you guys benefited from it, and we let you, and helped you stay a little tranquilo today. And if you didn't, then make sure to grab a Johnny on your way out. Thanks, guys.